Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special, vaguely Christmassy edition of the Word of the Day podcast, where useful words are pleasantly explained. I'm your host, Jamie Silva, and I'm excited to be back here in the RAV4 studios, which, as befits the season, are all decked out in holiday finery. That's right, we've got the whole staff gathered round, we've all been drinking eggnog and munching on Christmas cookies. We've just finished our annual Secret Santa gift exchange, in which everybody is assigned to gift someone else on the staff with a special vinyl recording of their favorite episode of this show. It's traditions like these and the cheery atmosphere we've got around here that make the RAV4 studios feel like home. And this is very fitting, because today's word is homey. And to be clear, we're talking about the adjective homey, H-O-M-E-Y, not the noun homie, H-O-M-I-E, which approximately means buddy or bro, as in, what up, homie? No, that is not today's word, even though I just discovered upon looking it up that H-O-M-E-Y is an alternative spelling of the bro/friend meaning. So that's confusing. But setting it aside, in my opinion, the adjective homey means pleasant, comfortable, and familiar, usually in reference to a room or dwelling. Or it can mean, either separately or simultaneously, reminiscent of or akin to home. Which, I'll just say right here, that's the Christmas tie-in for this episode, because being home for Christmas is a treasured holiday tradition. And in case you ever forget this fact, a variety of Christmas songs are here to remind you. Isn't that right, Carpenters?
Oh, there's no place like home for the holidays.
I thought so. Now, the Google definition of homey goes like this, quote, of a place or surroundings, pleasantly comfortable and cozy, unquote. And then, for the other sense of the word, let's turn to Merriam-Webster, whose definition goes, quote, homelike, or evocative of home, unquote. And evocative basically boils down to reminds you of / makes you think of. And I want to turn back to Google one more time for their synonyms for homey. Not because they're perfectly interchangeable with the word, but I think collectively they reflect a lot of the characteristics of hominess, which is also a word, by the way, a noun meaning the state or quality of being homey. Those synonyms are as follows: cozy, comfortable, snug, welcoming, friendly, congenial, hospitable, informal, relaxed, intimate, warm, pleasant, and cheerful. So we have these two ideas, these two senses of hominess, pleasant comfort, and then evoking or giving a sense of home. And logically, the two go together, right? Like homes traditionally are pleasantly comfortable and cozy. But what makes them that way? Well, the heartwarming closing scenes of a family sitcom explanation would be that actually home isn't so much a place or a house at all. And also, it doesn't technically have to be cozy and comfy. Rather, that feeling of home, that deep sense of comfort when you're there, you have that feeling because this is where your loved ones are. Thus, suggesting that home is actually about family and or friends, your homies, if you will. It's the place you return to after being away, even if you don't live there anymore. It's a place of rest, even if occasionally chaotic. It's where you belong, and you're always welcome, because those in it always welcome you. Home is where the heart is. Now, you've heard all this before, right? These are the classic, warm and fuzzy, intangible qualities of home. Though, a quick sidebar, I realize this description is geared toward familial and communal home settings, where there are people around. I think this is a more common association for this word, but for the record, a place to yourself, a place you live on your own and maybe occasionally have people over at, can, of course, also be a home. Moreover, you might have more than one place you call home, or at least where you feel entirely at home. For example, many people refer to both the place they live presently and their parents' house as home. One doesn't preclude the other. Now, getting back to the main thread. We were tracing the comfy, cozy feelings associated with home to these intangible qualities of togetherness and existential ease that homes are known for. But hominess can also be very concrete. In response to the question, what makes a place homey, you could highlight very specific things you can point to and pick up and hear and smell and taste. Perhaps a crackling fire in the fireplace, little knickknacks on the mantelpiece, a couple simple paintings on the wall, the smell of tea brewing or bread baking or a candle burning, the sound of a cat purring or crickets chirping out the window. A friend of mine, Della, whose voice you may have heard on the show before in our episodes on the words hyperbolize and not, runs a small business called House to Home Interior Design. Given her expertise, I asked her what she considered to be the essential features of this kind of hominess, and here's what she said. Quote, "The first key element of hominess is textures that encourage lounging and physical rest, i.e. surfaces that look comfortable, soft, and cozy. They invite you to relax into them and not feel constrained or that you have to be on your best behavior. Examples are overstuffed furniture, soft blankets, and thick, fluffy carpets." The second feature is lighting. This should be soft, warm, and relaxing, not harsh, and nothing that reminds you of formal places that you can't relax in, such as a cubicle, a doctor's office, a grocery store, etc. The third feature is the most difficult to describe, as it is both personal and dependent on the specific space. This is the decor and furnishings, which should be familiar, approachable, and not intimidating, i.e. pictures of family members instead of abstract art, or tchotchkes that have a personal touch and show the character of the owner or the neighborhood, as opposed to stock or generic decor that you would find in a hotel that has no personal meaning or uniqueness. You could also have a restaurant be homey by having art that is specific to the people who own it rather than, say, generic photos of food or silverware. Lastly, to get that sense of familiarity, make sure the design is approachable, i.e. the faucets are easy to use and the light fixtures emphasize function over some crazy sculptural form, unquote. Well, thank you, Della. That is highly informative. And I think I'll go ahead and do the examples now, because they really bear out Della's descriptions of this more concrete sense of hominess. Example number 1 comes from The Lilac Girl by Ralph Henry Barber. Quote, "A sewing stand supported a huge family Bible. The walls were papered in brown, and a brown ingrain carpet covered the floor. There was a couch under the side window, and a few upholstered chairs were scattered about. Now that the windows were open, and the warm sunlight was streaming in, it was a cozy, shabby, homey little room." Unquote. Example number 2 comes from Elizabeth Hobart at Exeter Hall by Jean K. Baird. Quote, "The room, evidently the best in the house, was homey and comfortable. There was an open fireplace big enough to accommodate a 4-foot log, a bright rag carpet, and some wooden rockers with easy cushions. The windows had white sash curtains. In one were pots of blooming geraniums." Unquote. So notice how, in all these examples, hominess is tied up in the decor, or sometimes the design, of a room or house, which are meant to convey the ambiance and the sensory cues of home. And I think the examples also show that homey places are most likely simple, unassuming, on the smaller side, and don't put on airs. You never hear of like a homey palace or a snug, cozy mansion. Those might be nice places to live in, I guess, but they don't have the closeness, simplicity, and intimacy that hominess is associated with. Now, the thing about having hominess be about all these specific physical things is that everyone's home is different, so different details will be homey to different people. On the other hand, I want to say that there's a universality to a lot of these things too, where you don't have to have grown up in a house with like a reading nook or windows with white sash curtains in order to say, oh yes, those things sound nice, they sound homey. Maybe that means they're part of the stereotypical home, the idealized home, the home our home wants to be like. Or maybe they just sound cozy and pleasant. I don't know. But anyway, all these physical features are the flip side of those abstractions of hominess we talked about before, with the community and the belonging and all that. And here we get to a really interesting aspect of usage for homey. You see, much of the time when people use this word, they're describing a place that is not home, like a hotel maybe, or a bed and breakfast. And because these places aren't home, they often try to compensate, sometimes successfully, sometimes not, via homey decor, furniture, interior design, etc. I think if you're actually at home, calling it homey would be redundant, be superfluous. You don't need to evoke a sense of home because you're actually there. Although you can definitely compliment someone else's home by saying it's so homey, especially if they just moved in and you're there for a housewarming party. And actually, same goes for your place when you first move in. Like, you're entitled to declare it homey at least once or twice, after you've finally unpacked all the boxes, set up the rocking chair on the porch, hung up the portrait of Great-Grandma Gertrude in the hall, and laid out the embroidered pillows on the living room sofa. Once you've gotten all these things situated, you can be like, well, it's sure looking homey in here now, isn't it? And then after a while, you'll get used to everything, and it'll just be home, and you won't have to keep validating it by calling it homey. And this is really the paradox of hominess, I think. Like, you can be somewhere that has these concrete, physical details of hominess, those sensory cues that are supposed to make you feel like you're at home, even when you're not, and you're probably aware of them and may comment on them specifically because you're not. And conversely, when you're truly at home, the homiest place of all, those details and cues usually fade into the background. They become unimportant almost, because they get all wrapped up in the larger experience and awareness of being at home. You also probably don't notice them, at least not without conscious effort, because they aren't the essence of home, and the place would still be home without them, as long as it was where you belonged, where those you love are, etc. So there it is. You probably wouldn't see your own home as homey because it just is your home. And other places might strike you as homey, but they're not home. At least not to you. Curious, isn't it? Now, this show doesn't usually do inspiring, closing exhortations, but 'tis the season for those, and it fits in with the word. So here goes. And for maximum sentimental effect, and in case it wouldn't make sense otherwise, let's bring in the Word of the Day Holiday Choir to sing underneath this next part. Folks, if you're fortunate enough to be somewhere that you call home this Christmas, take a moment to notice the things that make it home. The qualities of togetherness and welcome and belonging and rest, and all those other intangible essentials. And also, think about the physical things, the stuff you see, hear, smell, taste, and feel that make it a pleasant and cozy place. The things that make you think of home, or even feel at home if you're away and you see them. Think of how they represent something beyond themselves, something that transcends them, home itself. There's no place like it, and hopefully this bit of observation and pondering can help you appreciate what makes it so special. Well, how's that for some Christmas philosophizing? And thanks again to the Word of the Day Holiday Choir for making it sound uplifting and wise. Well, I see the eggnog is running low, as is my store of linguistic reflections, so I think that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider rating and reviewing the show on iTunes, as this helps more fans of fun words find the podcast. Until next time then, this is Jamie Silva saying so long from the RAV4 Studios. Thanks for listening, and have a merry.